How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, this is going to be a very quick dialogue. Me and Joe, we're doing a discussion on where the greatest liabilities are for correctional staff. And we want to make sure our rookies are aware of how our decisions on the floor can affect liability within the prison setting. And we're going to kind of filter it down to three areas: safety, security, and care. But before I bring Joe on, let me just go ahead and tell you guys, if you didn't get a chance, please pick up Inmate Manipulation Decoded. It's available on Amazon. This book definitely gives you the training you need to survive any game the inmate decides to employ, manipulative inmates. And then we have How to Succeed in Corrections. If you guys are looking to really have a successful career in corrections, this book, which is a thick book, has tons of tips and advice that will help you literally navigate through this field of sometimes high complexity. So if you guys want to check out this book, I would definitely recommend it. The advice and tips don't just come from me, but from other professionals in the field. And it's available at blue360media.com. The link to that is in the description. And I also have a smaller book coming out. This is it right here. It's tips for new corrections officers and their supervisors. There's 46 more tips that's going to partner well with this book right here. That's due out soon. It's going to be coming from Blue 360 Media. When that's out, I'll put the links in the description for the pre-orders. And if you guys get a chance, I have two good articles that I put the links to in the description here. One is dear to my heart. It's an American Jail Association. It's about is management, prison management, solely responsible for employee morale. And then I have another article that's out there for Corrections One about 19 tips when interacting with the inmate population. All right, let me get Joe on real quick. Hey, what's up, Joe?
What's happening, brother?
Hey, Joe, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Sure. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a 30-year retiree with the Texas Department of Corrections as a lieutenant and currently working in our local sheriff's department in the jail division.
All right, Joe. So I want to do a real quick topic because it came to me as we were having a discussion. And basically, when we're on the floor, we have to navigate a lot of decisions. And right now, unfortunately, because we're losing a lot of senior staff and they're taking their experiences with them, the lessons that they've learned, I'm trying to do my best with your help, with Russ's help, to try to make sure there's some information out there that fills those gaps so we stay true to what those core values are, but more importantly, what could be seen by many as common sense decision making. And sadly, when you don't have the right people, next to individuals, there's that are next to our rookies, there's a lot of things that may not translate. So again, as when you're prison management, you got to kind of ask yourself if there's a concern on the floor or a decision that you may not have liked when you were Monday night quarterbacking, a couple of days afterwards, is this something the person should automatically know? Or is this something that literally had to be taught to someone? Now, this is a discussion me, Joe, and Russ have been kind of battling with, because when we've been in the profession for so long, we don't really know what common sense is anymore. Like, basically, this is what the person should have come in knowing already, or what has been taught to us, because it is going to get lost throughout the many years of what we've been doing. Because right now I have over 21 years. Joe has more years than that. And sometimes when we've done things for so many times, so much, we do it a lot, through experience, we may think, oh, it's just common sense knowledge, but it may not be. It's still something that you had to be introduced to. So Joe, real quick, before we get into this liability side, this is definitely a good topic to have, because I think that for the rookies, one of the things that they need to know is every decision that they make could have the potential for a big lawsuit, if you will, correct?
Oh, absolutely. That should be one of the basics taught up front, is that, every decision they make could have an implication on safety, security, or care and custody control of the offenders. It could create liability. That's something that they need to understand, right off the bat, is that their decisions that they make on a daily basis have huge impacts.
And guys, I just want to mention, this is more about managing liability. So what we would believe as prison management that you should have coming in, the knowledge that you should have coming in when it comes to managing liability. So I want to just basically say this, and this kind of topic will be very quick, is when I filter a decision that had to be made, whether I was an officer on the floor or whether I'm in prison management, I look at three things. I look at safety, security, and I look at care. Those are the three things to me that are paramount for every decision I have to make. Now, granted, I would wish that in this world, when I had to commit to a decision, that those things are equally balanced out in every decision I have to make, but that's not going to be the case. And when it looks that you have to make a decision, you have to know in the back of your mind where the priority is and where those other areas fall in as a resource. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you said it best too. In our levels of management experience, after 30 years, we automatically assume that everybody comes in with common sense. But we find more and more today that that's simply just it's not the case. We don't expect people to bring drugs or contraband into the prison for personal gain. It's an understanding that we're not going to help an inmate escape. But we've been proven wrong time and time again, and we got to ask ourselves why. Is this something that was talked about during the training process? Was this something that was even discussed during the FTO process? Our level of common sense doesn't equate to what common sense is anymore, and we need to find out why and why it's not happening.
Yeah, now, guys, I do think that part of this is the basics when it comes to common sense decision making and corrections. I know that these decisions could be very complex. I get it. And unfortunately, we work in a fluid world. So if you don't make a decision quickly, I use the word complex. I don't say difficult because they just kind of add on top of each other. The longer you take to make a decision, it doesn't go away. It just gets more complex to solve. But I want people to realize something, that if you focus, let's say if I'm custody and my main thing is safety and security, and I'm putting 100% focus on safety and security, if there is a moment where care for that inmate takes paramount, let's say there's a medical concern, if the needs of safety and security are not met, that doesn't mean that you automatically negate the effort to care for the inmate or the effort to provide some medical towards the inmate. This is where the profession gets tough. This is where you start to have to make difficult decisions. Because again, if it was that easy, anybody could do this job. But the goal is basically you want to try to keep these balanced at all times, but that's really never the case. But you have to identify where the main mover is. What's the primary goal? And there will be times where the primary goal is going to shift from what your department is mainly responsible for, and it's going to shift to, let's say, medical, and now you have to be the resource. I know a lot of people, sadly, Joe, that automatically stay true to the safety and security aspect. And what I mean by stay true is they're so true to it that if there is a concern that the inmate does need medical, if they can't meet the needs of safety and security, they'll quickly won't make any attempt to meet the needs of the inmate's medical concern.
Yeah, and that's one of the balances we need to work on. We understand. Let's say in a closed custody environment, you got two men in a cell with multiple sanctions and or not disabilities, but disciplinary issues. One of them complains he's having chest pains. We don't automatically assume that you're going to just take one out of a cell and bring them up front and call for medical or call for a supervisor. But at the same time, we expect you not to go into that cell and get yourself set up for physical harm, any kind of escape liability. And, that's something that's the one that's kind of the common sense that we're kind of lacking in. We're not enunciating 100% correctly. We're not getting our thoughts on that out completely. And it's, leaving a lot of people in limbo. It's one of the things where you have to you got to reach within yourself, take a moment and think, okay, if I do this, this is going to happen. If I do this, this is going to happen. So, if there's any doubt whatsoever, that's why the supervision's there.
Yeah, and guys, when I'm talking about this dialogue, obviously I know safety and security is paramount, because without safety and security, you can't feed the other needs of the facility. But again, safety and security does serve a function. It serves in its effort to aid those other areas of expectations. So if I'm prison management, granted, prison management, we're responsible for the whole picture. We are responsible for the whole entire picture. So when I push the message down to the floor of what's more important, the team you lead or the team you're a member of, I want people to realize it's a team that they're a member of, which ultimately is related to the whole house. If there is a concern where, let's say, the needs of safety and security cannot be met, but you have a huge concern. Let's say you have an inmate. I'm thinking of just medical. That's the one thing that's coming to my mind right now, but I'm sure there's other concerns. But let's say you got medical, good supervisors start to weigh in probability versus likelihood. What's the likelihood this inmate poses a threat, as opposed to, well, this inmate looks like he's, could be really hurt, could have, something medical that's really going on. And at this point, through my experience, because again, you're not blindly going into a risk, it's strategically making a choice. And you say, you know what, I'm going to have to do what I got to do, because the greater liability here is there's no policy that says, when an inmate's in pain, let him suffer. The funny thing is, it's some people get concerned with violating policy, but this is a good dialogue for you to understand the difference between policy and procedure. Because again, sometimes the procedure could limit you. It could limit you, especially in today's world where the facilities are understaffed. Now, granted, I still want you to be cautious in making a decision, but you got to understand where the decision has to filter from. That's the key. So if right now, if I have a concern where the concern really relates to the care of this inmate, I'm not going to be in a position to freeze and not make any effort to provide care for that inmate. That's where the scramble comes in. That's where the supervisor is going to have to come in and try to mitigate to see what's the best option we have, because that inmate's got to make it to the hospital, or that inmate's got to make it to the infirmary. Now, again, very specific with the scenario, but I want people to know that the liability when you make a decision on the floor is it's intense. And management, obviously, when they come in and review everything, they look at it through those three filters: safety, security, and care. And at the end of the day, management wants to see all those things balanced, or support to the priority function if there is a shift. But if by chance we're looking at the floor and we see that, one department just won't move because they're so caught up in what they feel is the priority, which solely relates to their department, and we don't make an effort to shift priority to that other area, which let's say could be care, well, the facility will be held responsible, and management's going to wind up pushing that liability downwards, saying, hey, what happened? Why didn't you make that choice? What happened? And if you get a supervisor that says, well, I didn't have enough staffing to get that inmate out that was clearly in medical distress, that supervisor is going to have a lot of paperwork to do. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to care for them just as much as we have to contain them and keep them safe. Care is one of the three major issues and things that we're held accountable for. So, one, security will never negate care. Care will never negate security or safety. All three go together, fluidly, and that's something that we need to teach more of.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just kind of end it on this before I get Joe's last thought. Is, guys, every decision you make has to be a decision for the house and what best fits the house and the overall need. So we're thinking more long term. And yes, there will be times where we have to be immediate in our decision. I get it. But at the end of the day, I think good advice to the rookies right now is also think long term. Think of, the choices that you have to make that may involve more than just your own department. Hey, Joe, I have a question that was sent my way from somebody from the outside. So I thought we can kind of answer his question,
Sure.
kind of like as a bonus. And I'll let him know we're going to answer his question in my latest video. And this will kind of go to our closing thoughts. So he says, Anthony, I currently work as a corporal. He names the county jail, so I don't want to name the county jail. I'm working on a presentation for my sergeant's test. I'll be talking about how to make sure new hires are learning the important skills and character traits that will help them survive in this career. It's interesting I said that. Similar to what you just talked about in one of your recent videos. Any ideas or advice that you have would be appreciated. Also, thank you for the book. I bought my book. That's pretty cool. So what would be your advice? It's sort of what we discussed here, but you have any advice in your closing thoughts for him?
Well, depending on how much longevity he's got with the agency, I don't know, how long he's been there. But thinking about leadership styles and things that you can use in your toolbox to anything that leads towards retention of employees. whether it be through knowledge or teaching of new topics. All of that is a plus. I don't know if this is something that you are trying to do on your own, or if this is something that maybe you're trying to collaborate with, some of your peers there, to kind of invoke like an FTO program or towards an academy. But I would actually do a study of the overall facility that you're at historically, just to see what kind of retention they have. And when putting, if you're putting a slideshow or a class or something together, I would definitely reach out and look at the different leadership styles of your facility and see what's worked for them, and what's aided them into keeping people and making sure that your COs are better prepared.
Yeah, I love what you said, Joe. I think my new book's going to have a lot of advice to that. I mean, there's some good tips in there that really are for rookies, but also it's meant to be translated by good senior staff or supervisors. I put supervisor on the title of that. But I think this topic here also matters. I want skills in decision making. And I think being able to give people a foundation of, at least at the very beginning, of where we need the decision making to kind of, start from, if you will. I know when you get into this profession, if you don't have a strong foundation, the areas you're going to have to make the decisions in are going to be wild. So you got to have somewhere where it's rooted. Do I think it's a catch-all? No, but I think it's a good starting ground. There's really no catch-all here, but I think it's a good starting ground to know that the three priorities are safety, security, and care. When I think about it, pretty much everything falls into one of those three categories. I think so for the most part. So when you make a decision, as I said, I would love to believe that all decisions could be balanced. I mean, that's what management looks for. Or if not, we need to understand that you understand as a decision maker when the decision or the priority needed to shift towards another avenue of the three we just mentioned. So, I mean, I tell that to medical all the time too. If medical is focused on the person's care and we're trying to maneuver the person to get them where they got to be, sometimes I'll tell medical, hey, just give me a second, because right now the priority at this point is safety and security until I can get the person there, and then we'll shift over. But just give me a second, because we know right now we're going to get the inmate to you. So overall, we know you're the main priority. But right now, I have to get the person there. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. So I think when you make your decisions, if you're able to filter through those three components, knowing when to shift, and I think that can help definitely in early decision making, because eventually, as you start to progress in this profession, a lot of this becomes automatic because you've been doing it for so long. Okay, Joe, any closing thoughts here?
Yeah. I've said it time and time again, knowledge is power. If you have the knowledge, have the power to pass it on, because, decision making comes from knowledge and stuff that we as the veterans passed on to the rookies. If you have it, share it. Don't hold it to yourself, because it does absolutely no good to do that. All you do is, pass that power, pass that knowledge, and make them more informed to make better decisions.
Yes. And again, guys, this is just a quick little dialogue. I think it's something that will hold some weight. Again, we're going to try to do some more for our rookie staff just to kind of balance that gap. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Again, the show's Tear Talk. If you haven't, please like, subscribe, interact with this, comment, and share this stuff. It's good information. Also, I opened up a little smaller venue on TikTok, and we're going to start putting this content also on Rumble, because Rumble allows for us to talk a little bit more without being censored or copyright, which is, I don't understand how you can copyright an interview I'm having with somebody. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Please stay safe.